Good afternoon. Much thanks to Urjanet for inviting me to speak here at the SPARK15 conference. Thought I would give you kind of the way UPS views sustainability, what we have going on, what we think may differentiate us from others in the industry. So, in other words, we're, pardon the pun, driving for sustainability at UPS. You're probably familiar with UPS, the ubiquitous brown trucks that we have. We call them package cars because they used to be cars full of packages, but now they're trucks. Big operation, 400,000 plus employees around the world. On average, we deliver about 18 million packages a day. On December 22nd, that will be 36 million packages, so we have to flex our capacity somewhat for seasonality, if you will. More than just package delivery, logistics, distribution, banking, a whole portfolio of services that we bring to bear for our customers. And where are we, or where are we going? Just about everywhere that we're allowed to by law. There still are a few countries that are off limits, but they will open up sooner or later. I say all of that really to try to get you to understand the footprint that UPS has. We have a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of customers to serve, a lot of people who need their stuff, and they need it urgently. And so it takes intelligent logistics networks at UPS to make all of this happen. Sustainability. The world's kind of a mess from a sustainability standpoint now, right? We're challenged by population growth, depending on who you want to believe. We're at 7 billion now, 7 point something billion, could be 9 billion by 2040, 2050. More and more people competing for food, water, clothing, housing, and iPhones, right? Everybody wants an iPhone, right? We have climate change that's occurring, big concern, big swings in weird weather patterns, if you've noticed lately. They seem more pronounced and more prolonged than before. And then the quality of the air has degraded in particularly as we have more and more megacities. And so this is of growing importance to the world. It's becoming more and more on the forefront of people's minds, particularly our millennial generation. UPS, we like to say we're committed to more. We want to do more than just deliver people stuff. Okay, so our sustainability platform, we have 4 pillars: environmental responsibility, economic enhancement, connecting with the communities with which we serve and making a difference there, and then empowering our people, our employees, to make a difference. So sort of related to the triple bottom line, this is maybe what you're more familiar with seeing is the social responsibility, economic prosperity, environmental stewardship. We subscribe to 17 principles of sustainability. These are unique, this set is unique to UPS. Your companies probably practice many of these as well. But at the heart of our sustainability philosophy is to act responsibly and operate efficiently. Right? If you've got 100,000 vehicles and 400,000 people, operating efficiently can make a big difference, and operating more efficiently than the others in our industries. Not only that, you operate efficiently, you need to be able to report on what you're doing in a responsible manner. Reporting accuracy matters to UPS. We are about as transparent as you can get in this space. We utilize the GRI G4 Comprehensive, which is kind of the most rigorous reporting standards that there are. When we report our emissions, we report our Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emissions. Not everybody does that, but we do. We maintain those inventories, and we've been doing the Scope 3 for several years now, which is a non-trivial exercise. We also believe that when you report what you're doing, it has to be credible. So our report is assured by Deloitte, which is our auditor, and our greenhouse gas inventory is verified as well by SGS. Moreover, when you talk about what matters from a sustainability standpoint, you need to focus on the things that are most material. Now, not material in the financial sense, but material from a sustainability standpoint. Ed, how do you know what's material from a sustainability standpoint? Well, you do a materiality assessment. We did one a couple of years ago where we interviewed a variety of stakeholders and internal UPSers around we had a catalog of about 60 different sustainability-related issues. Had them all plot where these are, and this is kind of where it ended up. What you're seeing here is the upper right quadrant of things that were most important to stakeholders, most important for driving UPS business results. And so these things that are kind of in the white crescent up there, those are the things that we report on annually in our sustainability report. That's where we focus most of the narrative and where we're putting the most energy, no pun intended. Speaking of energy, that is perhaps the one where we are most challenged. UPS, strip it all away, we're a transportation company. We move a lot of stuff, and we move it really slow by ocean or rail, or faster by truck and fastest by our airline. We've got 267 jets flying all around the world every day. We burn a lot of fuel in order to do that. And the mobility sector is really challenged when it comes to friendly fuels or low-carbon fuels. That's kind of the horizon that we're really trying to push on. I mentioned earlier the Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3. Some of you are probably very familiar with it, maybe some not so much. The Scope 1 emissions are the emissions associated with your own company's operations. And the Scope 2 would be emissions from the power you purchase, the electricity that you purchase to kind of operate. And your Scope 3 would be the emissions associated with your supply chain, like the emissions from the people who make our airplanes and trucks and uniforms and so forth, or fuel, supply us fuel. And then downstream, people that you do business with that represent your brand. So in our case, air freight forwarders, outside service providers that may deliver on our behalf in the smaller countries, things like that. The key point here is that for companies that use UPS, we are their Scope 3 emissions. So our Scope 1 is essentially someone else's Scope 3 because what we do on behalf of customers. So to deal with kind of this emissions and how can we reduce our carbon footprint, we're trying quite a variety of alternative vehicles and alternative fuels. You name it, we've tried it or we're trying it. So we call it the rolling laboratory. Isn't that clever? So the electric trike we're doing in Hamburg. Maybe you've seen hydraulic hybrids here in Atlanta. You have to match the right technology to the right operating conditions. Some things are very suitable in cities, like electrics are very good in cities, right? Because up to this point, they've had rather limited range, right? You don't want to be stuck in the middle of the countryside, with a discharged electric vehicle. Some things are good for long haul, so liquid natural gas for our feeders. So we match the right technology to the operating conditions, altitude-wise, hot environments, cold environments, what those conditions are. I mean, in many cases, we have to build the infrastructure, like with the liquid natural gas fueling stations. You know, they're not on every corner. So we actually have to build and make that investment ourselves. This is a little snapshot of the variety of things that we currently have in our inventory and our total vehicle count. By the end of this year, will be around the 7,700 figure. Doesn't sound like much, but look, we increased it by 50% in 1 year, and we'll continue building on this. It's challenging at UPS in that we design our vehicles to last 20 years. Okay, that's why they look so old and stodgy, is because they're kind of old and stodgy, but they're designed to our specs, and we run these things forever, and then when they're done, we crush them and recycle them. Okay, we don't sell them on the aftermarket. So it takes, with about 5% of your fleet turning over every year, it's going to take a while for us to migrate into an alternative fuel, fully alternative fuel technology fleet. It may not happen for quite a while. It really will depend on kind of making the business case for that. But we're making great progress there, and we're committed to continue making those investments. There are a variety of alternative fuels out there. This is kind of a snapshot of what the life cycle analysis would be for a carbon footprint. And you'll see towards the bottom, the ones with the lower footprints are really the kind of the biofuels. We are now getting into biodiesel and renewable natural gas. There are advantages to that. They're still somewhat challenging to scale, but if we don't create a demand for them, they'll never be scalable. So that's the role that we're playing. This would, over time, as fleets, not only UPS's, but others in our industry, as fleets migrate to this, it will reduce the CO2 per mile or per ton mile that's out there. Another way of looking at it, I mean, we slice and dice this all different sorts of ways to convince ourselves, are we doing the right thing? If you look at here's a plot of how available certain fuels are and what the kind of the landed energy cost is per unit now. And you can see that while petroleum fuels are widely available, have an energy cost, the availability of the renewable diesel and renewable natural gas, they don't have wide availability, but there are some advantages from a cost standpoint, particularly when you apply different subsidies that may be available from federal or state governments, because they're trying to encourage this migration as well. So we believe we're in a unique position to leverage these renewable diesel, renewable natural gas because of the scale of UPS, and that those fuels can be inserted, they're drop-in fuels, right? They can be used in existing infrastructures rather than having to build the very expensive liquid natural gas or hydrogen fueling stations or somewhat. Now all of these may end up being kind of a bridge to the hydrogen future. We don't know. We're hedging our bets. We're doing experiments with the DOE, to kind of explore these things and move them along. But regardless, this is kind of where we're going, and we want to be able to leverage less carbon-intensive drop-in fuels. A few years ago, we started on this track in 2007. 2010, we set a goal to reduce our carbon intensity by 20% by 2020, and we're tracking toward that. By carbon intensity, we're talking about kind of the carbon per package we deliver. So our absolute carbon may increase because the business increases, but as we become more and more efficient, and we want to be the most efficient in the industry, carbon per package, leased with UPS, responsible thing for companies to do would be just to give their volume to UPS so that it has less of an impact on the environment. That's the sustainability angle on this. There are some countervailing forces, okay? B2C deliveries. It ends up being challenging, and this may be a little counterintuitive to you, but B2C deliveries are much more energy intensive per delivery or per package, if you will, than commercial deliveries. When the UPS driver delivers packages to a Staples or department store or something like that, you know, it's a lot of packages per stop. So the energy associated and the fuel associated with that stop per package is low. On a residential delivery, more often than not, it's a one-piece delivery, right? And it can be time-consuming. And if it requires a customer signature and the customer's not home, it can be frustrating for everyone, and we have to try again the next day, right? And then possibly the next day. So all of those factors kind of go into increasing the amount of fuel or energy per package that's required there. It's generating a lot of great business for us, and we're getting our fair share of it, but it is challenging. We have to combat this situation and try to make this phenomenon more sustainable with the B2C deliveries. We have a combination of there's the UPS My Choice service. Who's familiar with that? Have you signed up for that? A few people. Anybody can sign up for it. It gives you inbound visibility of when your package is going to be delivered. And if you're not going to be there or you want it redirected, you can do that. Now, ideally, we'd like you to redirect it to a UPS store or an access point, UPS access point for you to pick up later, because then we're delivering it along with a bunch of other packages to that stop. And in essence, it helps us turn residential stops into commercial stops. So there's the UPS My Choice service. On the shipper side, there's what's called smart pickups. We have a lot of accounts that don't necessarily, the small accounts, they don't necessarily ship something every single day. In the past, our practice was you go there every day just in case there's going to be a package to pick up, because we don't want someone else picking up that package. And so now we have this smart pickup where we communicate with the shipper and only go there and make that stop and burn that fuel when there's work to be done at that location. And then I mentioned UPS access points. We're in the process of developing this network of 20,000 plus points where packages can be picked up or shipped from. We only have about 4,500 UPS stores only, but those stores aren't always open when you need to get your package. With access points, these are places that have longer hours. They can be convenience stores, they can be dry cleaners, they can be a lot of different locales. And so we're building out that network now, and we believe that this will help make a difference during our peak season here in November. So there'll be more to come on that. We have a program to work with shippers around their packaging materials, how to reduce the size of the pack and the amount of packaging materials, how they can become more sustainable. In other words, hold up during the rigors of going through a delivery system. Because, you got packages in a truck that's, bouncing down the road, or on the rail car, right, that's bouncing, it's shaking and baking all the way across the country. You need to make sure that the contents are adequately packaged. We also have something called carbon neutral. This would, for people that understand offsets. They understand that each time that they order something, there is a carbon footprint associated with that delivery. We can actually offset that particular transaction either from the shipper side or from the consumer side. If you go to a UPS store, you want to ship something, you can make it carbon neutral. For nickel, we actually buy the offsets that offset all of the carbon associated with something traveling through our network. I think grounds of nickel and an air package is 20 cents, and international 75 cents, or something like that. It's very, very simple. And then, of course, we purchase verified offsets we use the Carbon Neutral Company for that, which I think they just changed their name to Natural Capital Partners. And some of our projects, Garcia River in California, and these are ones here in the U.S. We also purchase offsets in Europe. European customers want to know that, any carbon neutral shipping that they do, it's being contributed towards European projects. So, another way that we try to reduce our carbon footprint is through, intermodal shipping. When something moves through our system, we want to move it the most efficiently, but we don't want to move it too fast or burn way too much fuel. So if there's something that is supposed to be 2-day service, and we've got a weekend in between, we'll actually ground it instead of fly it. Okay? And you do that millions of times, it really adds up on reduced aircraft flight, reduced payload that we've got to fly, improves the utilization of our ground trailers, partial loads become full loads, so forth. So we can shift around. In fact, during peak season, we'll do a lot of that as well. The time commitments for that during peak season are relaxed somewhat, and so we can end up grounding some volume that customarily we would have to fly, because you can't just suddenly add twice as many aircraft to your fleet for a week's worth of work. And then maybe you've heard about our Orion system, our on-road integrated optimized navigation. It's a mouthful, but this is where we use big data to each day optimize each driver's delivery route, delivery order sequence in such a way to minimize the miles that they travel. Okay? Advanced algorithm's 200 pages long, so I haven't memorized it. Very complicated. We have a complicated system in that some packages need to be delivered by 8:30, some by 10:30, some by noon, some by end of day. So, and you've got pickups in there, and then we have commercial stops that only have delivery windows open during a certain part of the day. UPS, you can only be on my dock from 11:30 to 12:30, that sort of. You balance all of those sorts of constraints. You need some high-powered algorithms to do that, and that's what we use. We're in the process of deploying that. We'll be about 70% complete in the U.S. by the end of this year. By the end of next year, we'll be fully deployed in the U.S., and it adds up. We can take, on average, 6 or 8 miles off of a driver's route each day. It adds up to 100 million miles a year that we don't have to drive. Okay, eliminating waste. Act responsibly, operate efficiently, right? And that translates into fuel and CO2. Can make a difference. We also will work with our customers for them to kind of rethink their supply chain network, right? How they're sourcing, where their DCs are, how many distribution centers should they have, should they operate their own, should they operate out of UPS distribution centers. Is a hybrid solution the right thing? Usually hybrid's the best answer because we don't always have buildings in the most optimal position for each customer. But we work with customers around that, and by that we can usually shrink down delivery times, how many days it would take to reach different customers, and shrink down the number of miles that need to be driven, so it results in fuel savings. So I mentioned the My Choice service that we have. There's something we call SurePost, which is a hybrid solution with the post office. Actually, with SurePost, the post office makes the final mile delivery on behalf of UPS. We have to pay postage, of course, for that. But for very lightweight, small residential packages, it's not a bad solution. It's very low price. Doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a UPS service, right? Guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. You don't have as reliable visibility. It's usually a day longer time in transit. So there's kind of a trade-off that customers have to use. I mentioned the access points and the eco-responsible packaging program. The last one, and this is, I don't know whether you've heard much about this, we have an on-demand packaging program where we can install in customers' distribution centers equipment that makes custom-sized boxes for each shipment. So depending on the size of the SKU or the stock keeping unit, the item inside the box, or if there's several items in there, small boxes for small things, large boxes for large. How many times have you gotten something delivered and it's like this big and it's in a box this big, right? So that eliminates all of that. And the benefit there is there's less shipping air on the road. You can get more packages in trailers and in package cars, which translates into needing fewer trailers, fewer tractors to pull those trailers, and fewer gallons of fuel that are burned. So it's kind of a snapshot of what we're doing in sustainability, the area that we're most challenged with. We have received some nice recognition, so we think we're on the right track with what we're doing at UPS. And if you want to learn more, you can go to our website. If you want to read our 140-page sustainability report, which probably won't get too many takers, but there is a 24-page highlights brochure that's pretty slick. So if you're looking for ideas on what to do with sustainability at your particular companies, take a look at that.